The year was 1980. Kids had that big hair, perms upon perms. You could have ridden a surfboard on some of those people's flows. They had the spandex and the lacy shirts, the ripped knees and the leg warmers. Neon colors as far as I could see. High-waisted shirts and mullets everywhere, I tell you. The word of the day was inflation. Higher prices for those ripped jeans and leg warmers. The price of the Police's third album, Zenyatta Mandata, went through the roof. And Andrew Lloyd Webber's Phantom of the Opera may have premiered on the West End that year, but when it came to America, who the heck could afford it? The consumer price index was through the roof. And in those days, you could have at least still smoked a cigarette with your best gal on the airplane, but not going to the Olympics. Americans weren't allowed to go there, and President Carter, strong leader of the free world that he was, faced impossible challenges in the years ahead. Well, it's a good thing we don't face those problems anymore. Brandon, I had this conversation with my father about what happened in the 1980s. I mean, I was 6 months away from entering this fair land. And the reality is, like, you don't have control of it. So you can control what you can control. And getting upset about politics or yelling at one another in the chat, it's not going to do anything. It's not going to do anything. So we have to focus on how to manage our way out of this. And in the world's biggest trade, the focus is, hey, let's put our money to work. Let's find the right trends and let's protect ourselves. So I've talked about silver, Bitcoin, palladium, and platinum. We like Silverbain, Stillwater as a miner. We talked about Harmony Gold. A lot of the junior ETFs, the junior mining ETFs, are underpriced compared historically to the S&P 500. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that, but that's one thing. Buying the banks under price to tangible book value of 1. Foreign currencies. Well, not the Brazilian currency, not, I don't know, the euro, but Swiss francs. Norway has the krone's a great currency, which is effectively energy backed. But our big trend, why not gold? Because GLD is a futures ETF. Nope, not touching that. Rather do the miners, because the miners will relate better to the actual price of gold, particularly if they have good balance sheets. But we talked before, it's about the FANGs, it's about the robotics, it's about AI. Again, I'm just going to beat this into the ground. And the reason is simple, because at the end of the day, the cycle that exists in this economy is simple. And I'm going to repeat it every single day to everybody. I'm going to keep it very simple. You can zoom in on me. I'm a big boy. This is very simple. Over the last 60 years, technology has displaced workers. I'm going to repeat it. I'm going to repeat it every day until you get it. The GDP per capita in the United States has gone up and wages have remained flat. And that is largely due to automation, technology, computing. In the 1990s, it really took off. And in the 1990s, the Fed started doing something called inflationary targeting. And that's where they started to say, let's aim for 2%. It was feel-good policy. Robert Shiller's talked about this. So the 90s happen. Computers, software displace legions of workers. 2000s, this, which has more technology in it than the Apollo missions, has displaced. What is this displaced? I'm asking the chat. What do you use this for that a human being used to do something with? And there's a lot more than you think. It's not just the bank tellers. The cost of communications was expensive. There used to be people that used to plug lines into phone tellers between where people were trying to chat line to line. Board games, post office, exactly. Calculators. It's so monumental that it's hard to wrap your head around. And I watched somebody give a speech about that, talking about this 10 years ago. Well, now it's not just the phones. Now you start to move out of the business to consumer realm, right? So you used to go to the store and you would buy things and check things out, the United States became a large service economy after we outsourced all of our manufacturing. So this replaced entire stores of people in towns all around the country, and it's still doing that. 4G, which is the fourth realm of our cell phone technology, was business to consumer related. Now remember, in the US economy, GDP is $20 trillion. That's heavily consumer driven, heavily consumer spending driven, right? About 70%, so 14 trillion. That metric does not include all of the money that is spent through the supply chain. It's just not measured. Not a lot of people really focus on this. Some people would estimate that figure is between 30 and $35 trillion, possibly even more. And that's what 5G is going to disrupt, the B2B spending. So when you hear this conversation, when you hear this idea that you're going to inject a lot of capital into the markets, as this infrastructure bill reportedly will, it's probably not going to create a lot of jobs. It will spur more automation because, as I said, when this crisis started, the B2C economy, the e-commerce economy, was moved forward 5 years. And now the B2B is playing the same game. So all of these sensor companies that we like, talked about Qualcomm, we talked about NVIDIA. All of these companies are going to make a fortune displacing labor and tightening supply chains. I have a very simple thesis, and you can go back through any company that has gone 10x in the last 10 years. If you can increase the flow of information and reduce the cost of that flow of information and move it faster, if you can do that with physical goods, you can just do that with information, you can do it with data. If you can just speed up any of those three things, information, capital, physical goods, if you can do all three of those, you have a phenomenal investment. The reason is, though, by reducing those costs and doing it faster, it is deflationary by nature. The US economy has not caught up with that deflation, particularly from the 90s. And the Federal Reserve's solution is to not allow inflation because people don't want to see their nominal wages go down. Even though you have more for less, you don't get a higher paycheck. And that freaks people out. Larry Summers said that in the 1990s, and that's what kicked all of this off. This idea that Americans would not tolerate lower prices, lower nominal wages. They won't tolerate lower home prices for a house they bought. They're not going to tolerate the fact that their $100,000 college degree probably should be worth nothing today. They're just not going to do it. So, again, moving forward, robotics, AI, and the companies like Facebook and Amazon and Netflix and Google, everyone's looking for the next ones. They're the ones who made a lot of money from the Fed papering over all of that deflation. And as a result, what happens, they now have more money to invest in the same technology that displaces people. So the argument's simple. Invest in the companies that replace the labor. That's it. Pretty simple.